Welcome to a Cycle Skip and You. This is a Cycle Skip guide. My name is Pinky. I'm a top AO any percent player, and I'm here today to help you try and get your first Cycle Skip. Now, to start with, requirements, I'm immediately going to say if you can't play above 60 FPS, then you can't do this. Like, straight up. Like, minimum requirement, at least like 100 FPS. I recommend playing at 200 or 300 FPS if you can, uncapped. Otherwise, at least 100 FPS. If you're playing at 60 FPS, you can't do it. Okay, so just get that out of the way immediately. Besides that, just I want to start with saying like I don't I don't want everyone to be like overwhelmed thinking that cycle skip is this impossible thing to do when it's really not. It seems a lot harder than it actually is, and I know people are intimidated by that and scared to actually even try. So it's really not that bad. You just need to take it one step at a time, like everything in this game, honestly. Now, I'm gonna be going over a very basic 10.9 run, and then I'm going to go over uh, each step throughout the whole thing. Now, starting, I'm I'm going to assume everyone here understands like basic game knowledge and understands like the names of bounces and stuff. So I'm not going to bother explaining any of those. I'm just going to be calling like BBs, and stuff. And my mind went blank. This isn't scripted or anything either. I'm just doing it unedited. Now to oh yeah, I remember what I was gonna say. So each ground pound involved in cycle skip with each book or platform that it corresponds to where you do that ground pound, we refer to as a number. So like the first book stack and the first ground pound is just one, and then the second is two, and then three is three, and then four and five and six. So I'll be referring to those as numbers. Now let's watch the run first of all. Okay, so yeah, pretty generic, like I said. Now we'll start talking about one. So the first book stack is harder than you would think it is because it's not just like, oh, like you can't just do an aerial BB off the edge because that's too slow. So you very specifically have to do an instant BB off of it, which involves actually landing on the book stack. So there's one of two ways of doing this. You simply just jump onto the book stack. It doesn't matter which way, how. You can do a short hop onto it. I do a short hop. Other people do a full hop. As long as you just land on the book stack and then walk. And then you just run off the edge and instant ground pound BB off of the edge. You'll know if you do it right if Ame actually does a flip or not. If she does the flip, then you didn't do it right and you don't have enough time to actually do the cycle skip. This is really important. So if you actually do it correctly, then it will be like this. You won't do the flip. You just go. And that's required to do the cycle skip. So That's the first thing you need to work on, is actually doing those correctly, because I think people misunderstand and think that you can like just do it, and even if you flip, like you can still do it, or like if you do an aerial BB you can do it. You can't do that. It doesn't work, because then you're a quarter of a second behind, because that's how much time a GP takes. So you don't have enough time to actually finish the cycle skip. Then if you do a flip or you do an aerial BB, then you can get to the elevator doing a cycle skip still, but you won't actually be able to complete the cycle skip because it's too slow and you don't have enough time. So yeah, just remember, no flip and you're good. Just make sure you don't flip. Okay, so that's one. Moving on to two. All two is just doing an aerial BB. Very simple, straightforward. You either get it or you don't. And then you move on to three. Three can be kind of tricky because you need to be left enough. You need to be left enough to actually make it to four. And if you ground pound too far into the middle on three, then you'll be too far to the right and you won't be able to make it onto four. So you want to ground pound. You want to try and ground pound as far as you can to the left on three, but without actually doing an edge bounce or an aerial BB. Or does that even make sense? Yeah, it does. So you go from 3 to 4, and then as soon as you go to 4, you'll be holding left going into 4, but right as you're landing on 4, you want to turn and hold right, and then you want to instant GP off of 4 immediately. This is probably the biggest time loss throughout the whole cycle skip. The first half of cycle skip is the easy part. 1, 2, and 3 are very easy. And then 4, 5, and 6 is where you either gain or lose all the time. So these are very important, especially 4. 4 is the biggest time loss or time save you can get. So go into 4, holding left, and then as you're about to land, hold right, be facing right, and then instant GP off of it. And you want to, this is very important, you want to be going diagonally and not straight up. I see people make this mistake a lot when they're trying to do cycle skip. They go straight up and then they land on 5. And you lose too much time doing that. You have to go diagonally. So you go diagonally like this from 4 to 5, and then you get ready to GP on 5. And that's all 4 is. 4 takes a lot of practice to get good at, and there's a lot of optimization for it, so do not underestimate 4. That is a huge run killer. But so is 5 and 6. 4, especially when you're first trying to do your first cycle skip, can be hard. But you're probably going to have a lot more problems with 5 and 6 than 4, as long as you just do 4 fast enough. Okay, so moving on to 5. 5 really depends on where you GP on 5 coming from 4. This makes a world of difference. So here you can see I'm very low when I GP on 5, and that's good. And I'm like in the middle right-ish, which is okay. You want to make sure that you're not all the way to the right, because if you're all the way to the right, then you will not have room to move to the right as soon as you GP on 5. because you want to be holding to the right already as soon as you GP on 5 to get to 6 as soon as possible. And it's really important that you give yourself room to move from 5 to 6, because if you don't have enough room, you will bonk 6, you will bonk the elevator, and then the run is just dead. The same thing can happen from 4 to 5, by the way. If you bonk 5, which is the plat right before the elevator, that's 5, coming from 4, then it's dead. The run is dead. There are instances where you can keep going with the run if you just barely graze it, and it just looks like an animation thing. But most of the time, if you hit 5 or 6 at all, then the run is dead. Just reset. So, talking about 5 again, you want to be kind of in the middle to the left. It's hard to explain this one. But yeah, you want to give yourself enough room to GP on 5 and get to 6 without bonking it. So this is 5, going up, moving to 6, and then getting ready to GP. This is pretty slow, but again, it was a slow run. I just wanted to show like a very basic run. I don't want to get into some like crazy 10.6 or like 10.5 shit. So going into 6, you hold right from 5 to get to 6 and GP on it as soon as possible. On 6, you want to make sure that you're not left enough to edge bounce off of it. That would be really bad. A lot of runs end that way. But you also want to make sure that you're not too far right, because if you are, then you will go too slow and then you won't make it to diagonal. So this is pretty high, but it's far left enough for me to make it. You can GP a lot sooner than this, but that doesn't matter right now. So 6, and then going up, barely make it up to diagonal, and then ground pound off diagonal, and then you just danger jump, GP on ramp, and finish the run. The way you finish the rest is really preference and up to you, but I'll go over how I do that as well. So after diagonal, that's when the cycle skip is considered done. As soon as if you make it to diagonal, you're done with the cycle skip. The whole cycle skip is just those 6 bounces. So after that, congratulations, you've done your first cycle skip. And something really important I want to talk about right now is, please don't beat yourself up if you don't finish the run after you have completed your first cycle skip. Like, if you fail danger jump or you fail mom and you fall off or something, like, it's fine. Like, just remember that you already did cycle skip once and you can definitely do it again. So please don't get discouraged and try again. Now, moving on from 6, you do diagonal and then danger jump. And for danger jump, you want to full jump completely into the ramp, and then I prefer GPing where the mustaches are. It's just a really easy thing to do. And then right here for plant skip, you can either do a short hop or a full jump. Now, these are 2 very different things. I prefer doing a short hop because it makes it a lot easier. All you have to do is just a short hop. You hold right or hold forward the whole time. You just slide off the corkboard and land on mom, and then you can either instant mom, or if you're uncomfortable with going for instant mom on your first cycle skip, which is understandable, I don't blame you, then you can opt for just ground pounding on mom clearly from the air, like before you actually land on it, or you can jump off the cork board into the air and then GP on mom from the air, like basically guaranteed. And then that will probably be anywhere from an 11.3 to like an 11.5 if you don't do instant mom. If you do instant mom, then you can expect anywhere from an 11.x to a sub 11, probably 10.9 or an 11.0, somewhere around there, depending on how the run is. And that's basically it. We'll go over the run one more time. So yeah, that's cycle skip, and I hope I was able to help and explain that well enough. I plan on making a text guide for this as well, so it'll be easier to look at that. But I was just trying to go over a couple of scenarios where I know cycle skip runs usually die and people struggle with, and the things that you should be doing, which most importantly is 4 and 5, honestly. Well, 4, 5, and 6. Because you need to do those a very specific way or you're not going to make it. Oh yeah, one other thing I wanted to talk about is on 6. If your 4 is bad and your 5 is bad, well, chances are you're probably not going to have enough time. But if you can get a good 6, there are times where you just barely don't make it. And it's because people hold left into diagonal after their 6, and then they bonk it from the bottom, and then they don't go high enough to actually make it onto diagonal and then GP off of it and complete the cycle skip. So it's really important that you don't do that. Do not hold left after your 6 unless you know what you're doing. You basically want to be like this far out when you do your 6, and then once you reach the apex of your jump or like halfway through, then you hold left to go onto diagonal. Not before, because you will bonk it, and then that will ruin everything, just like with 5 and 6. Like, you don't want to bonk anywhere. Bonking is really bad. Besides that, I think I covered everything. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, and I'm sure I didn't get all of them, but that's basically the gist of all of it. Now, the last thing I want to say is be ready to grind. It's not as bad as people would think, but I genuinely believe that if you just put in an hour or 2 a day trying to do cycle skip, and your FPS doesn't suck, that playing an hour or 2 a day for a few days or like a week or something, I guarantee you will be able to do cycle skip. And the best thing about it is that once you do cycle skip once, I can tell you, I'm very positive that after doing cycle skip once, it is much easier the second time, if you're interested in doing it more than once. But if you're only interested in doing it once, that's cool. I respect that. I really just want to try to help everyone as much as possible to try and do cycle skip at least once. So anyway, yeah, that was the guide. I'm sure I'm sure it was kind of sus, but you know. So anyway, thanks. See you.